Welcome to Universal's very first entry in our Featured Healer series. This is where we sit down with a fellow light worker and we talk about the work that they're doing and about the part that we're all playing in this collective shift in human consciousness. And today's light worker is a very special guest, my very own channeling teacher, Connie Viveros. Welcome, Connie. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Daniel, it's a pleasure. It's just incredible to be here together on this level. It's like a new echelon for
And
both
this is
of us.
only, I think, the third time I've seen you in person, I think.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Because we met during the pandemic online.
We did.
Well, welcome. So tell us about your work, how you got into this type of work, what specifically you do, for those who don't know.
So much like you, I started my journey with that passion and interest to know there's much more to myself than what sits in this chair. And it really came out of a deep-seated pain that I was holding and harboring in my own humanity. And I knew that this wasn't the way we were supposed to live. We were supposed to live in joy, happiness, and bliss. And I was sort of, where is that? And so it took me on a journey of self-discovery and self-illumination to figure out what my wounds were so that I could turn them into that wisdom that everybody speaks of. And it led me on an adventure to channeling, and I thought it was the wildest, craziest thing, because Jesus had always been my guide, and he was a private guide that I kept very sacrosanct and close to my life. And yet, channeling, like talking for Jesus. But then when I thought about the Course in Miracles is a channeled text. And when I started to draw those parallels, I thought, oh, it's not so outside the realm of possibility for myself to be a channel. I was already channeling, but I hadn't acknowledged that within myself. And so that was close to 15 years ago.
Wow.
And then that quickly morphed into sort of a divine feminine consciousness and energies. And it was actually Jesus, and he asked me to call him Yeshua. He said, my name is Yeshua. And I said, got it. From here on out, that's my reference. But still people like to know him as Jesus. And he said, I'm going to introduce you to my beloved. And his beloved was the Magdalene. And he was very, very protective of her energy. And he said, you will be working now with these divine consciousnesses, these divine feminine consciousnesses. And so that's what brought me to that evolution of Magdalene and then ultimately Divine Mother. And now I'm working with an entity. She claims herself as the Christ Sophia.
Well, that's beautiful. And how would you characterize the majority of your work that you do today?
My primary focus is really assisting others to raise their own level of consciousness so that they too know that within them they have a relationship, a partnership, that there is an aspect of them that is related to a soul lineage, that I call it. And we came here, we incarnated to live that light body soul lineage out. And we're part of the Christ story. I am part of the Christ story. Others are part of other stories and other archangels or ascended masters or other lineages of galactic origin. But I tend to be, and many of us tend to be, relating to the Christ story.
So everyone has a connection to these lineages. And
someone, something.
So what does it take for someone to be a channel?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is it takes devotion and dedication and practice. It takes a commitment to wanting that for your path.
So if someone is interested in pursuing this kind of journey and getting started, what would be their first steps?
Well, for me, it would be to get support and find a mentor. Find someone or a group of people that you could trust. It's not easy to go it alone and white knuckle it. I find that to be one of the most excruciating ways. When people come to me as a client, they've been white knuckling it. They've been trying to go it alone and figure it out, and they're having spontaneous psychic awarenesses. And I'm seeing the number 1111. I'm seeing feathers. I'm seeing, bumper stickers that are songs on the radio. All of those synchronicities are important, but it goes much deeper than that. And I think it's important for everyone to get somebody to help them. It takes discipline. It takes your practice to want to say, I want to unite and reunite, and I want to know myself as this.
So anyone can be a channel.
anyone, we already are channels, Daniel. We're already walking around as channels. We're intuiting information, we're reading energy, we're picking up on sentient life everywhere. You know, we feel for the trees, we feel for the sentient beings that are around us.
When you're channeling specific information, how do you know that what you're experiencing, the information you're getting, is genuine?
I don't really. There's no verifiable way or method to say that channeling is absolutely sacrosanct and real, but there's a feeling that you get. And as you evolve in the channeling experience and journey, you begin to know certain ways that you feel. It's a feeling of inside myself, like I literally feel like my cells are departicleizing. They're like stretching out to here, and I can feel my energy way out here, and that's where the merging takes place. And I feel the non-physical, multidimensional field. It's no longer just me here in this small little universe of a body. And then information starts to show up. And it's a quality and a tone of information that you just know is not coming from my mind. You know, it's coming from a wiser field of intelligence and wisdom.
That's interesting, because sometimes, even after I channel some of my favorite messages that have appeared on this YouTube channel, I'll be driving home from that and go, I didn't think that was very good, you know? And then when I'm editing it, I go, wow,
right.
There's so much more here than I could have. It's nothing that I have to compose.
Right, and that is a machination of the ego. You know, we always, in class and in teaching, we've learned this is the ego mastery is the journey. You know, our egos don't really want this for us, and so they'll pull back and they'll tug at us, and that will be that two voices in your head that you'll begin to dialogue with, and which one are you listening to?
What would you say about discernment? Because we have a very conflicted culture right now, and sometimes a channel might speak up on a certain political side. What is the method of practicing discernment in the way you consume channeled messages from other channels?
Again, this is ego mastery, and so whenever you find yourself in conflict or judgment of another, that's sure enough an ego thought. I practice discernment by being neutral. By practicing neutrality, and I think that's one of the biggest tools that we can learn as a channel. Is our lives are so much bigger than just this one life. We can't get so caught up and tied to this particular political stance is sustainable. It's just not sustainable. When you think back 250 years, I think about what we're uncovering now. So we are making progress. A lot of progress has been made, and I do feel that there's a tendency right now, an uprising of the indigenous understanding of what they went through, that we are headed into a period of reconciliation for what took place and transpired before. Nothing, Daniel, stays the same. It's what, 260 years the United States has been around. I think Rome was in power for over 1,000 years, the Romans. So we just have to take it in stride that you are here now, you've been here before, and you will pass this way again. And you might have a completely different orientation or feeling about the everyday politics that are going on at the time of your incarnation.
I think Seth has been teaching me that the only true death is stagnation. That
Beautiful.
growth is part of, it's change is part of that, and endings are part of that, so we should embrace them.
And the cyclical nature of things, even this life is, you know, in a cycle of our soul and our soul's awareness, and we're just ever evolving, and we keep incarnating to a greater and greater aspect of ourselves. And I believe that we are the most enlightened and aware that we've ever been. And so we want to embrace that. And I was shared in a channeling information through my guide is that by, and she's saying 2040 or 2050, we will have more enlightened people in the world than unenlightened people. And so we're reaching a tipping point where we're going to return to sort of a balance and an equanimity. This is about equality, the equanimity of the male and female. That balance of power is returning. that polarity is coming back into balance. It's been so out of balance for so long.
We need that balance, and we're starting to find that balance is starting to come back into our awareness
Right.
on the Indigenous side, and women's voices now being heard more than they have been in the past. I think that's wonderful.
And I believe, from a channeling perspective, from a metaphysical perspective, that we have been building that bridge in our reincarnations, in our incarnations of lifetimes over and over and over again, is that we know the injustices. And it hasn't necessarily just been the women, because we've been incarnated as men, but now it's a safer time to be a woman and to bring forth these traditions and this knowledge.
You mentioned the return and exploration of Indigenous tradition.
They understood that everything is in the circadian rhythm of nature. They understood the cycles. They understood that we are one with. No one can own land, really. Nobody can own water. Nobody can own the nature beings. And so we're in this cycle of returning ourselves to that, and we call it indigenous, but I call it the ancient wisdom teachings that have been around since time began. This is what the women held. The women held these tools and these secrets and these rituals and these potions of how we were so in sync with nature. We need to honor and use nature to our advantage. So when you say, there's a plethora of women that are really, I think it's just because they're the empaths of the world. Not to say men aren't, because I believe in each one of us resides the balance of male and female. It's just oftentimes out of balance within our own personal, our own physiology. But I do believe that there's another agenda. There's another narrative that the men exist within. But if you go back far enough, you'll find the compassionate leaders in the indigenous tribes.
Right.
Very compassionate. And they understood the role of being a leader of a people, and the safety and security and the sanctity of maintaining those traditions and those cultural priorities for them.
Seth says all the time that we're entering the era of the heart, and that era is all about connection, building community, and that our strengths are really found through our connections to others. It's not just what am I bringing to the table, but what are my brothers and sisters, my friends, my neighbors, what are we all bringing to the table, because we get to share in that bounty.
I mean, there are groups now that are rejoining and coming together in collective community and sharing. They're returning to the communal living model that we've really walked away from. When you think of most civilizations and cultures, they did live more communally, and there are people that want to return to that. It's getting too hard to figure this out on our own.
What is something simple that the average person who's maybe watching this video could do to connect with their higher self?
Well, the first thing they can do is begin a practice of meditation and joining and communion, and really be serious about it, committing themselves to every day for a certain amount of time. It's not a fly-by-night thing where you can do it, gain a certain goal or reach a certain place with it, and then let it go and think it's going to remain. Just think about, we wash our dishes, we wash our clothes, we wash our body. It's an accumulation of energies, and that has to constantly be nurtured and maintained to stay in a high vibrational state. So it's really a personal journey that each person has to take, and nobody can do it for you.
This is wonderful. Thank you so much. If someone was interested in learning more about your work and the types of classes and things you offer, where could they go to find out more?
Well, right now it's Angels Emerging, and it's a website that they can join in, and there are classes that are ongoing. We have classes going on through right now October, November, and December, mostly October and December, and then into January. So come on and join us. We have free offerings and free channeled offerings, and step in and see if it resonates.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for appearing today, and thank you for sharing your perspective and your wisdom. It's been such a pleasure to have you.
My pleasure to be here, Daniel. I love you. Thank
Love
you.
too.